there. Ole Miss offensively. Quinshon Judkins, welcome to the 2023 college football season. Quinshon Judkins, 33 carries, 177 yards, and a touchdown. He averaged 5.5 yards per carry. Ulysses Bentley had a nice game, 9 carries for 90 yards and a touchdown, including a 43-yard touchdown run. Jaxson Dart carried it 7 times for 50 yards in the ball game. He was not sacked. So I said let's jump into some numbers and then we'll go from there. But let's press pause.
Yeah.
Because all of that actually points to something else. Judkins was really good. By far his best game this season. Bentley was good. Jaxson Dart was good and was not sacked. The offensive line has been greatly ridiculed and maligned through the first 4 games of the year. Without question, they played their best game of the season on Saturday night.
No doubt. I don't get paid $9 million a year, so I don't know the schematics as much. But they clearly made some adjustments, but physically as well. I mean, Micah Pettis is a guy that took a lot of heat, especially after the Tulane game. And, buddy, Harold Perkins lined up across from him a lot. And how often did you hear the name Harold Perkins on Saturday night? I mean, the only time I remember is when he got banged up a little bit and they brought him to the sideline.
Look, Lane Kiffin in his post-game press conference didn't want to come out and say specifically what they did from a scheme standpoint, but he said it's rare that he has ever built a game plan around staying away from a single player. And he said, if you watch it pretty closely, you can kind of tell what we did.
Yeah, and, man, that was the difference. And even the negative running plays on Saturday were so important because, Judkins is really good at running through contact and falling forward as opposed to backwards. He's good at that, but their negative running plays were 2-3 yards instead of negative 2-3 yards. And so even if they didn't have great success on one running play, it was still 2nd and 7. And it's just so much easier for an offense to operate when you've got 2nd and 7 as opposed to 2nd and 12, which is what they were dealing with in Tuscaloosa a week ago. So even when it wasn't perfect, it was still different. They controlled the line of scrimmage the entire game. Dart avoided a couple of sacks there because he's really good at doing that. But by and large, he was kept clean, was able to just distribute the football well. Yeah, those guys have been ridiculed all season, and they rose up and played extremely well.
Jaxson Dart, 26 of 39, 389 yards, 4 touchdowns, no interceptions, and he spread it around. Trey Harris had 8 catches for 153 yards and a touchdown. Dayton Wade, 7 for 64 and a touch. Jordan Watkins, 5 for 103 and a touchdown. Caden Priestcorn caught 3 balls. His importance in the running game probably can't be overstated. Ulysses Bentley caught a ball for 17 yards. Sakari Franklin caught 1 pass for 7 yards. Quinshon Judkins caught 1 out of the backfield. In all, 26 receptions by 7 different receivers for, as I said just a second ago, 389 yards in the game. On the other side, look, LSU's offense deserves credit. I know there have been a lot of people, Ole Miss's defense was awful. Ole Miss's defense was bad. We can agree with that. But I do think if you watch the game closely, you just saw a highlight with less than a minute to go in the second quarter with Dejon, Dejon Anthony in coverage. He was covering Kyron Lacey. The coverage could not have been any better. He was step for step with him. He was not even trailing him by a step. He got an arm up, and the throw was so perfect from Jaden Daniels, he couldn't touch it. I thought Ole Miss's defenders were in the position they were supposed to be in a lot on Saturday night. Now, LSU had a lot of run after catch yards. The crossing routes, the drag stuff across the middle was really good to them. I think that's an area that Ole Miss has got to figure out a little bit. Jaden Daniels was sacked 3 times. Ole Miss was able to put some pressure on him. Brian Thomas Jr. and Malik Neighbors are NFL wide receivers. I'll ask you guys. Hey, Dad, you've seen them both in person. Are they both first-round NFL receivers?
I don't know if Thomas is. He's such a speed guy. I don't know. Neighbors is for sure, though.
Yeah. I mean, Mason Taylor's an NFL tight end. Logan Diggs looks like they're finally settling into the right guy at running back. I thought he was really impressive, had 101 yards rushing and 2 touchdowns on the ground. So, yeah, Ole Miss defense got some work to do.
Yeah.
But I would ask
that
this.
Said, well, what I was going to say is I go back. I've brought this up on the show before, but something Bob Shoop said one time is like, you can play a game like Ole Miss played Saturday night and say that you played good defense. And you can say that you can lose the game 10-7 and say that you played bad defense. Because when you had to have a stop, did you get one or not? And when Ole Miss absolutely had to have a stop, couldn't go another step without getting off the field, they got to stop.
LSU's fourth quarter possession. So they had been going up and down the field all game long, just destroyed all game. LSU had 4 fourth quarter possessions. First one was 3 plays, -5 yards, and they punted. Second one was a 55-yard drive for a touchdown, 4 plays. Third one was 4 plays, 20 yards, punt. Fourth one was 6 plays, ball to the end zone, end of game. So they got wrecked all night, but the difference in the game was they got stops in the fourth quarter. LSU did not get stops in the fourth quarter. Ole Miss wins the game. And you know, I was thinking about this. That's not the first time they've gotten better as the game has gone on. I can't help but wonder if they do play a pretty high volume of players on the defensive line. They rotate a good bit. Not as much last night as they have in non-conference games and stuff like that, but they were fresher, it felt like, than LSU was late in that game. Ole Miss was getting no pressure on Daniels at all until the fourth quarter. And then they were able to get to him without bringing additional guys either. They created havoc in the fourth quarter, kind of doing it the same way, at least from my untrained eyes, that they were doing earlier in the game. It's just they were getting home.
Yeah. There was a moment late in the ballgame where Trey Harris scored the touchdown, the 13-yard touchdown reception that put Ole Miss in front. And there is debate here. LSU had 2 timeouts remaining. There were 39 seconds left in the game. And Trey Harris could have gotten a first down without going into the end zone. And Lane Kiffin, after the fact, said the reason he went to a knee and looked defeated as opposed to celebrating a touchdown there was because he wanted Trey Harris to go down, bleed the clock, and then kick the game-winning field goal. But he also said that in retrospect, he was glad that it turned out the way that it did because he thinks his defense can gain some confidence by what happened at the end, by getting off the field without giving up a game-losing score. Where do you fall on that? Because as I was watching it in real time, he caught it, and I was saying, go down, go down, go. Oh, he's going to score. That's a lot of time left. The way that game had gone.
Knowing that he wasn't told to get down makes it a heck of a lot more understandable that he didn't. Because in that moment, I assume he thought he was going to get tackled. You know what I mean? He had a couple of defenders kind of closing in on him. He shakes one, and then Priestcorn just leveled the other guy. I have a feeling that in that moment, it's probably so hard to think, I need to get down here because I just beat this guy, and then, end zone, touchdown, we win. You know?
Hey, Dad, you've seen the highlight of that play, right?
Yes, I was watching it, yeah.
Do you guys think that LSU let him score there?
No.
Or do you think he made the one good move to kind of juke the guys and then got the block and he was able to score?
I don't think LSU. I mean, am I really going to say that I think LSU was trying to let him score when on the previous how many ever possessions Ole Miss scored? I mean, LSU couldn't stop Ole Miss the whole night.
Their secondary looked like that for 4 quarters in this game.
And look, there's also the other piece of it is if you do that, there is a play that you have to execute. It's basically an extra point, but you have to get a good snap. You have to get a good hold. Your kicker has to put it through the uprights. It has to not be blocked. And I mean, do you have to look any farther than LSU against Florida State in the season opener a year ago to see an extra point get blocked? And so, I don't know. I mean, in the NFL, 100 times out of 100, the right play is to go down. And
we haven't said a name yet. At least I don't think. Not in the context of reaction. Lane Kiffin. So this time last week, it was justified. The conversation started with Lane Kiffin, as it should have. The tweets, the press conferences, and the way the team played fell right back on the feet of Lane Kiffin. And the equal and opposite attention needs to be paid on the way his team played this week. I mean, I don't know if embarrassed is the right word, but the way they played was really bad. I mean, they played really bad last week after all of the stuff, And instead of letting that cause them to fall apart like it did last year, they came out and immediately played well. Like the plan was really, really good. The game plan was. Mm-hmm. Offense was called beautifully for 4 quarters. But most importantly, the fourth quarter. Ole Miss was down 9, so a 2-score game with under 8 minutes to go, and I believe facing a 3rd and long. I think it was 3rd and like 11, where Dart hit, I think it was Harris for a first down, but it was 3rd and long, down 2 scores, midway through the fourth quarter, and they won the game. How many football teams in general would have lost in that spot? A ton. How many Ole Miss teams would have absolutely lost after that the review gets it wrong and LSU's given a touchdown? How many Ole Miss teams would have completely folded in that spot? A ton. That speaks to leadership with your quarterback, and that speaks to coaching.
And I thought Lane Kiffin did 2 things in his postgame that really stood out. But before he said anything else, he said, I've been really hard on our fans. He said, I want to thank our fans. He said the environment tonight was great. It was incredible. It was a true home field advantage. They were into it. They stayed. He said, so if I'm going to be hard on fans when, don't show up, don't participate, he's like, deserve a ton of praise. I'm paraphrasing there. The other thing that he said was he was asked about folks being really mad and kind of on him and on the staff and the team after the loss to Alabama. And he said, good. That means the expectations around here have finally changed. Thought that was an interesting take from Lane Kiffin. Hey, Dad, I want to ask you this because we've gotten a bunch of people that have jumped on and they wanted to talk about officiating. Holding, not holding, imbalance of calls, Ole Miss versus LSU, the specific video review on the touchdown that was upheld. It's real easy for me to go, that was a blown call. You wear maroon underwear. You watched it. What'd you think?
The only call I can really speak on, because I'm watching the game in the press box and I can't keep up with everything, but the touchdown is incredibly iffy. I didn't think that they were going to hold. I didn't think it would hold up, and it did.
And that's the one that most people are keying on it. And here's my thought on it. He never had the ball in his hands. He didn't catch the ball with his hands. He caught the ball with his forearm and smashed it against his stomach. Never got his hands on the football until he was on the ground. And as he was going down and hitting the ground, the ball moved. And so the ball is allowed to move if you maintain full possession and complete the catch. Right? That can happen. How can you say you have full possession when you never have your hands on the ball? I mean, can I just go running down the field and lift my arm and let a ball come through and just clamp it down between the side of my rib cage and my bicep and kind of cradle it in my underarm? Well, and that's
without knowing. I think if you've got the ball under your arm, I think it's a catch. I think that's control of the ball. You don't have to have it in your hands, per se. I mean, if it gets wedged in your helmet, do you have control of the ball?
It's reasonable. I mean, does that mean a Jugs gun shot it in there?
Yeah, basically. You turn around, the ball's just right there. So, yeah. I don't know. But I thought that was a very, very iffy call.
Yeah.
Yeah, the ball moving is what gets you there. Yeah.
And I'm surprised by how many people were blown away by what Lane Kiffin said when he's like, look, I don't get a vote in this. I'm not saying you're wrong. The referee told him, he's like, but I don't, that's not my call. And Lane Kiffin was like, wait, so what do you guys do when you're over there? Just hanging out? I feel like most people didn't know or had forgotten that the referee doesn't make that call even though they're watching the replay. It's the replay center in Birmingham that is making the decision. It's crazy.
RG3 nailed it on the broadcast, by the way. When pre-score got the holding that ultimately didn't matter, it felt at the time like that was a huge call, but they scored anyway. RG3 was right. He just blocked him too good. he just whooped that guy, and that was the result. What a difference he makes, by the way. So, I mean, when you put up offensive numbers like they did, it's everybody, right? We talked about offensive line play. Jaxson Dart, we even got some texts on this show last week about when do you go to Spencer Sanders? Never. And you are never going to go to Sanders, Dari Noka. That's over now. Jaxson Dart always had this upside. He was always capable of this, and he finally played not a perfect game. Underthrew a couple of balls on the sideline that he would like to have back, but no mistakes, nothing. Hey, I just disconnected. I'll have to reset during the break. But didn't make any mistakes, ran the ball well, all that. Trey Harris was physical and dominant and blocked well and all of that. But Prescorn's presence can't be ignored. All three of his catches, only three of them, were on third down. And his blocking was we had a block that cleared up the Long Bentley touchdown. He had a block that cleared up the Harris touchdown that ultimately won the game for Ole Miss. Having a true tight end of that offense, look at what it does.
I responded to the wrong message. Somebody said, then why does a referee go to a video monitor to watch the replay? Here's the answer to that. The referee, the white hat, is part of the conversation with the replay officials, but the sole determination on the ultimate call standing as called on the field or being overturned lies with the replay officials who are in the SEC Video Center in Birmingham. Plus, they have to communicate with the referee. So, anyway.